Our next speaker is Amanda Williams. She received, or she did her architectural work at Cornell University and is now adjunct professor of architecture, fortunately for us again, here at CCA. She's a practicing visual artist, and if you want to see her work, you might want to check in on her website, www.awgallery.com. Did I get that right? Okay, I'll repeat that, www.awgallery.com, because people usually just give you the address once and you say, what was that again? So I'm repeating it to make sure if you're interested that you'll check in. Amanda's going to talk on a very fascinating topic of blacks was always green, which as I understand it will be a look at the history of the relationship between the sustainability theme and the African American experience. So thanks very much for joining us.
Here we go. Good morning. So first of all, I'd like to thank Kim for thinking of me, inviting me to participate today. This actually is born out of a talk that I gave last year at the, I think, Berkeley City College that talked more generally about roles of artists and issues of sustainability. And I had a little clip in there that talked about the fact that I thought that black had always been green. And so it was a little bit in jest. And Kim loved it, so I've developed it into the talk that I'm going to give today. So thank you. I think it's great to come just after Katie because the first few slides of my talk are actually dealing exactly with the idea that green has become basically a new marketing strategy for mainstream America. So I also kind of jumped on the bandwagon and was joking that green was becoming the new black, borrowing from the fashion idiom that references a style that has come into vogue. And as green continues its proliferation into our mainstream lexicon, I couldn't help but wonder what its connection, or seemingly lack thereof, was to black, or more specifically, blackness. So as Katie was mentioning, it's pervaded every aspect of consumer culture in a way to basically help companies figure out how they can get more green by being green. So this is fresh and clean, spend less green. There are a magnitude of websites and every company you can imagine finding their way to be green. So as you can see on the Sundance Channel's main splash page for green, we have Citi by Smith Barney and also Lexus becoming part of the green movement and the eco community. It also makes it very difficult with the proliferation of the internet as a way to communicate with one another, to decipher between those sites, blogs, movements that are truly green and those that are doing it for ulterior motives. Despite that, there's a noticeable gap in the promotion of green as being mutually exclusive from black. While I'm aware of the complexities of race in this country and the reasons why there might be this gap in the way that green is being promoted by the mainstream marketing population, as the daughter of two Southern parents, it strikes me as odd that a sizable portion of our society doesn't know that black has always been green. My father, a young 62, picked cotton in Memphis, Tennessee, so I always like to remember that whenever my brother and I complain about hard work. So in a generation that was not, he was not a sharecropper, he was not a tenant farmer, this was just work that he got to do in order to try to put extra dollars into his pocket. So this slide makes me wonder what his experiences were like decades after this picture was taken, but still many moons before my time in life where green and black didn't seem to have any relationship to one another. So while I'm focusing on black Americans in particular, I also wanted to note that this phenomenon discussed is easily translatable, and we will probably hear about its impact on indigenous societies as well as immigrant Latino and Asian populations throughout the states. I'm going to conclude by posing a few questions about how green might broaden its reach to become more effective to all of these communities. As Katie so brilliantly spoke to, in essence, what we're calling green has become a trendy catchphrase for everything from eco-friendliness, sustainability, ecology, hybridization, organisms, organic, global warming. These are all cousins of the term green. So I looked up one definition of sustainability and found it to say, of relating to or being a method of harvesting or using a resource that the resource is not depleted or permanently damaged. So I wanted to kind of explore that term through the lens of the history of African Americans in this country, with their original base being an agrarian society. So these are just some images, again, I was talking about before, of various consumers, Lexus hybrid living. So they have an entire site that gives you a lifestyle about becoming green and how their hybrid SUV can help you in that endeavor. Here's Apple. Here's Whole Foods, the whole deal. Here's Whole Foods is 3 under 3. And here's McDonald's 3 under 3. So I wanted to show these two slides just very briefly because it's a little frustrating for me as somebody who had not grown up, despite my parents' background, with a connection to the land or to gardening or to environmentalism or ideas about environmental justice. And then to live in a place like the Bay Area, which has been at the forefront of the Green Party and environmental movements, but also because of the economy that we possess here, is also a huge part of the consumer green movement. So the idea that I should be eating at Whole Foods instead of McDonald's becomes difficult for me to fathom when for your $3 at Whole Foods you can get some pita chips or some organic rice milk, and perhaps a single mother of 3 or 4 can get an entire meal for her family under $10. So back again to what I was mentioning before about the history of green and African Americans. So I like to compare this picture, which might be thought of as an integral visual element in depicting American society and agrarian life. And this more recent image that was created by John Ficara, who's a photographer who documented black farmers in the South a few years ago. So this is John and Evelina Burton. And this is Rosa Murphy. And this couldn't help but make me think of Elizabeth Catlett's Sharecropper. So again, back to this idea of how in our popular imaginations there's become a disconnect between black agrarian roots and the current green movement. There's a great tie to the land. So I want to talk about a couple of traditions that existed that were examples of Africans who were involuntarily transported to the U.S., carrying with them holistic conceptions of sustainability that had to do with survival of the spirit, of the land, and of their social and personal practices. So throwing bones, jumping the broom, using every part of the pig to create soul food, scraps of food, using burlap to create clothing, an idea of recycling and reuse having to do with an efficiency and way of life, passing on your clothing or your shoes to your siblings, and then taking those same garments once they were completely deteriorated and using them as rags. This is a picture of Frank Mathis around 1954, showing a variety of goods, both produce but also things that he'd created.